Before we jump into this week's episode of the Tech Ed Podcast, I want to extend an invitation to all of our listeners to join our team at the Digital Transformation Summit. If your company is looking to implement automation in Industry 4.0 and just needs a little guidance on where to begin, on what technologies you should consider, and how to go about the process of ushering your organization into the digital age of manufacturing, into Industry 4.0, this event is for you. You'll find all of the details in the show notes. You can also check out techedpodcast.com/digital transformation summit, all one word, for all the details for this event, which is taking place in central Wisconsin on April 23rd and 24th. We'd love to see you there. And now on to this week's episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. It's Matt Kirkner on the Tech Ed Podcast. Thanks for being with us this week. We're talking about some topics that one of which I know a tremendous amount about and one of which I know almost nothing about. So in many cases on this particular episode, I'm going to be learning right along with the audience. The topic that I know almost everything about, or at least plenty about, is that of advanced manufacturing. Our audience knows that I spent a good 25 years, give or take, in the manufacturing space, still invested in a lot of manufacturing companies, active in manufacturing, love manufacturing. Ask me a question about manufacturing and you will get an answer. The topic I know almost nothing about is neurodiversity in manufacturing and neurodiversity in the workplace, neurodiversity in general. So we're going to learn all about that with somebody who absolutely understands that topic really well and understands manufacturing the way that I do. His name is Peter Rathmann. Peter is the Chief Executive Officer of a company called Allis Manufacturing. We'll talk a little bit about his company, but more so about this really, really cool topic that he is onto, the idea of neurodiversity in manufacturing. So, Peter, first of all, welcome. It's great to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
So our conversation today, Peter, is all about neurodiversity in manufacturing, the value that neurodiverse individuals can add to the workplace. You know, let's start out with, why is this such an important topic to you personally? I know this is an important part of your own individual life, and I want to make sure our audience knows right out of the blocks why this is so important for you.
Sure, thank you. So our oldest daughter, Emma, was diagnosed with Asperger's at age 12. Okay, we always knew there's some idiosyncrasies there, not enough. Some non-experts are like, oh, she's autistic. What are you going to do? Well, some really great case manager in the Waukesha School District at the time kind of led us down this path. You know what? Yep, textbook. And Asperger's has now been rewritten to be autism spectrum disorder level 1.
Okay.
Right? You can Google that. There's plenty of AI-generated answers for you.
Yeah. How old is Emma now, by the way?
So Emma's 24.
So this is 12 years ago now.
Correct.
She was
Correct.
diagnosed. Okay.
And Asperger's itself wasn't technically a diagnosis till like 94.
Okay.
And now, again, they've reclassified it because of the functioning levels. So anyway, so, you know, people telling us that throw us into a bucket of having an autistic child. Hey, she's not going to graduate high school till she's 25. Group home living, will never be able to survive on her own, that type of stuff. And you're
People
just like,
really said that?
It's ridiculous what the pamphlets that you're given can give you and take your mind down a dark hole.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's without knowing her. But we just, you know, my wife and I, she was our first, and just we weren't willing to accept that, right? We knew what she was capable of. Very, you know, just a great kid. Have total faith in her being able to navigate things now. But we spent a lot of time navigating the world, networking, trying to find dads and daughters. Not a lot out there. Girls are 10 to 1 outnumbered by boys, and usually very diagnosed later. So in this journey, did a lot with her. I started my consulting business specifically as a life stage because I needed to be accessible for her, preschool, post-school, sports events, and just really translate the world for her and answer a lot of questions that she just did not understand, you know, what she saw or what she heard. So worked really hard to give her a launch pad.
Yeah.
You know, this story's not done yet. I can
Right.
say, you know, she did graduate on time with her class. She was
Awesome.
a 3 varsity kid.
Wow.
Went to UWM and
University
got
of Wisconsin,
her
Milwaukee,
correct,
yeah.
the
Okay.
Waukesha
Okay.
district
Yep.
location.
So just west of the city of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. Yeah.
Got her associate's degree, went on consulting meetings with myself, learned the business world, understood how companies make money. When I bought Allis Manufacturing, she was there at the shop working 20 hours a week, you know, learning how to turn a screwdriver and talking to all the guys. and gave her enough skills to where I can say now she's independent of me and working pretty much full time at Husco
Yeah, we'll talk
International in
about that too.
Waukesha.
Great company. Yeah. So
You
so
know,
much further ahead than you would
yeah,
have. Certainly, you would have believed had you believed everything that you read, but you took it upon yourself as a parent, as a father, and said, "This isn't good enough. We're going to figure this out." And you went on this incredible journey that we're going to learn more about as we continue the conversation here. But before we get into that, Peter, for people like me who maybe know a little bit about autism, you mentioned that Asperger's is a level 1. If you said, tell us a little bit about what our audience should understand about autism in general before we go a little bit deeper into some of the specifics of the conversation today.
sure. So I think the new stat is 1 in 36 people have some form of a spectrum disorder.
Wow, so like 3% of the population, give or
Right.
take. Yeah.
11 million in the workforce, I believe
Wow.
they're saying, that are underemployed, which is kind of the mission we're on here.
Right, of course.
So autism is a big tent.
Hmm.
And when you think of, say, the color spectrum, the color red is pretty definitive within that spectrum.
Right.
The 5 levels, autism 1 is the high functioning space that I really know. I'm sure everybody on listening to this knows somebody in their family or neighbors that has a low functioning individual, nonverbal, no eye contact, really needs a lot of resources. The level 1 space, listen, you just need help understanding the world. You need a little bit of clarification. So I can really only speak to Emma's space so much from a parent. Causality, I don't think they'll ever figure it out. But
Lots of theories, but
lots of theories,
yeah.
It ends up, I think the greatest belief is that there's a stopping of developmental pathways in the brain when it comes to having to open up communication and understanding of things. So we spend a lot of time translating headlines, radio lines, innuendos, the clickbait that's out there, the
Yeah.
double negatives.
Sure.
Listen, they're very literal.
Interesting.
Very, very left brain, very logical.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's been like raising a teenage girl version of Spock.
Okay.
Okay, or the character Data for the second generation of Trek.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Huh. Fascinating. So tell us, and I mean that genuinely. I mean, this whole topic is fascinating to me. Lots and lots of misconceptions about individuals on the autism spectrum. What are some of the more common ones that you run into of what somebody like me who isn't as familiar certainly as you are, might think about someone with autism?
So the two misconceptions are, listen, they can't function in the world around them, right? So the holding of hands, the transportation, all that. The second is that they're not productive. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, about the people that are known historically and current to be on that autism level 1 spectrum disorder. You're talking Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Charles Darwin, Emily Dickinson, Marie Curie, Einstein, Isaac Newton, Anthony Hopkins, Dan Aykroyd. All are known and have said, listen, we're high functioning autistic.
Huh. And brilliant people to
Brilliant
every
people.
single one of them. And Elon Musk doesn't surprise me. I think I'd heard that and knew that. Bill Gates, I guess I wasn't aware of that.
So they're all individuals that are able to kind of, listen, they don't care about all the social stuff around them. Very deep and wide expertise in certain subject matter. So the ability to focus on something almost like a savantism in a certain category.
It's like being obsessive. Is that a word for it? Or
I don't, it could be, right? So I think there's some OCD that is on the spectrum as well. ADHD is part of that whole spectrum. For Emma, she loves sports statistics. So if you were to put her in a room with about 50 senior ESPN officials and they started talking about, teams outside of Milwaukee, she could tell, probably take them to class.
Yeah, that's awesome.
On history and, hey, why this person is and where they move. It's fascinating. I don't have to know sports because I have her.
Very cool. Yeah, awesome. So let's talk a little bit. I want to make the connection to you're a huge, obviously, passionate and completely supportive of your daughter, which has led to this kind of interest and fascination and advocacy for neurodiversity in the workplace. I know a fair amount about your company, Allis Manufacturing, but our audience doesn't. So a quick snippet on what that company is, and then let's get into neurodiversity in a little bit more detail.
Sure. So Allis Manufacturing, it's a 70-year-old company founded, custom manufacturing. So it has morphed over the years as far as equipment and people go. But we do work in 12 different industries, custom manufacturing to print. everything we do goes into things much larger. So we don't do an entire wind tower for the energy sector, but we do the gearbox that's inside that. We don't do some of the power transfer station stuff, but we do again, the reducer housing, the shredders that are out there in the recycling business. We don't do the whole unit, but we'll do the shaft and maybe the shredding box itself.
Yeah, almost reminiscent of the old BASF commercials where they're like, we don't make X, but we,
Correct.
we make
Right.
it better, right? That's
Right.
kind of what
Right.
you're doing.
Right. It's you'll never see something that we do on the shelf, but you've seen the results of our input for that.
Yeah. So you're manufacturing these products for all kinds of industries. You're located here in Southeast Wisconsin, where we are, correct?
Correct. So West Dallas, about 10 blocks to the west of State Fair Park. The whole West Dallas area, very historical because of Allis Chalmers.
Absolutely. Huge manufacturing behemoth.
They wanted to open up a west plant, and it was unincorporated land. So hence the incorporation was originally 4 square miles centralized on Allis Chalmers west plant. And there's a great historical district, manufacturing, rich history in that city.
For sure.
If you've seen Oppenheimer, which is
Yeah.
the latest movie out there,
Right.
Building 25 at Allis Chalmers was responsible for the enrichment.
Oh, cool.
And so Allis Chalmers had the most input as far as the Manhattan Project goes than any other North American provider of
That's
services.
amazing. Yeah.
But it was very unknown.
course.
Everybody wondered while there was people in hats with guns walking around
Right.
Building 25, and
Yeah.
now it's kind of coming to light.
Is that
now.
building still there?
So that building is not specifically, but some of the buildings along 76th Street
Yep.
are been converted into Class A office space. Some
Yep.
is retail now.
Absolutely.
I think they're making apartments out of some of the rest of it.
For sure. Yeah. There's a technical college campus right over there as well.
MATC.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And we'll talk about them a bit today as well. So, Allis Manufacturing, our audience has a bit of an understanding of what it is that you do from a manufacturing and product standpoint, not yet an understanding of how you're embracing neurodiversity in the workforce. So let's go into that a little bit.
Sure. So when I bought into the company in 2017, I actually inherited 2 individuals that were on the spectrum.
And did you know it at the time?
No,
Okay.
but it was interesting because you're walking around meeting everybody and the managers that I had also inherited, even before, hey, nice to meet you, was, well, what are you going to do about Dan and Tim? What are we talking about? I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you too, right? And to find out as I was working through the floor and getting to know everybody, and what their capabilities of and how they looked at approaching problems and solving in their workflow, yeah, they were different versions of Emma. So I know the space, what the characteristics are.
Yeah. So, and this is just to kind of put it into perspective now. We're 7 years ago. So you're, 5 years into your journey with Emma, give or take, at that
Right,
point.
correct,
Okay. Yeah.
correct. And once you realized who they were and how they approach things, you basically just how to feed them the work. Both experts, efficient. They don't like disruption. They don't like rework.
Yeah, I don't either, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, in
Who
manufacturing.
does?
Yeah.
3 times the cost.
Right.
They won't call themselves perfectionists,
Hmm.
but they hate making mistakes.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So they both have a plan in their heads for the next 10 jobs that are laid out on the shelf.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you could do, which is the reason I was asked, what are you going to do about these
Right.
guys? Well, we need this really quick. This customer changed something. And so you're going to them with a plan that just completely disrupted
Right.
their train on the track.
Got it. Yeah.
And so once you understand that, no, we brought them to the table with all of the decisions and the jobs to be done next. And what do you need? Tooling, what's going on? And then the managers I have in place now, very sensitive to the fact that we're all individuals. When it comes down to managing neurodiverse individuals, it's not much different.
Right.
They just have a different label.
Sure.
And so anyway, inherited these guys. And once
Yeah.
I figured them out, okay, well, we're already doing this.
Huh.
So the whole idea of we're a poster child for this, space already.
Absolutely. It's already working for you. And, the question of what are you going to do about these 2 individuals? Well, how about we create a work environment where we can leverage this really, really unique approach to manufacturing? And I'm telling you, if you've got somebody that is methodical in their thinking, that understands that, if we have a really good plan up front, which is kind of what I'm learning from you, we can avoid rework, we can maximize yield, we can be really efficient. Six Sigma is all about taking variation out of the manufacturing process. They've already done that in advance. It sounds like. So we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But what are you going to do about them? Well, let's leverage this incredible gift that we have. Part of that is going to be You already started touching on this, Peter, is really understanding that they've got to have a certain work environment or a certain culture that they're living in order to be productive and in order to be comfortable in that environment. So talk a little bit about that. How do you have to? I'm assuming you do have to modify that model a little bit for them. So tell us how that works and how you go about doing it.
As far as creating a culture goes, anybody as an employer, you provide an environment where people can do the work that they want to do, have a voice, have a seat at the table, have the door open to make suggestions. All the changes that we've done in the last 5 to 6 years, none of them were for me. I am the dumbest guy in the building when it comes to this business. All I had to do was clear the runway and listen to the ideas they had of what we should be doing better. So as far as an environment goes, the I did just foster the individuals I had to grow. We're naturally kind of set up for it. We do have a no a-hole rule. And when you make it about the mission, which is the highest quality on time all the time, listen, it's kind of like how we were aligned as a culture when World War II, the space race. When Reagan said, hey, when the aliens show up, all these problems disappear. I was kind of hoping COVID was the alien, but it went a whole different direction, right? So, listen, we're all in this together. So when you make it about the mission, it doesn't matter race, religion, anything, age, right? Education. If you're adding utility to the business, there's a place for you. Why? If you have an individual that wants to be on time, cares about the work they do, and is constantly wanting to learn and do more and do it better, you'd make a spot for them.
Yeah, for sure. As you're talking about this, a number of years ago, did a study. They've got like the top 100 workplaces. You see this in a lot of cities where they'll name the, employees nominate their employer, and then they select the top 100 places, best places to work, right? And we reviewed every single application. This goes back a number of years in Southeast Wisconsin in this case, and looked at the commonality between employees that were nominating their employer and they're literally standing up and saying, I think my employer is so great to work with, or to, it's so great to be employed on this team that I want my team to be my employer to be recognized for the work that they're doing in the workplace that they've created. And it all boiled down to three things. And when I thought we'd have like the 25 things that make the really cool culture. The first one was people, and you touched on this, but the first one was people, and it's not even so much who you quote report to or who your supervisor is, it's the people you get to work with. So it's the people that you go to work with every day. And if those are the kind of people that are fun to work with, that you enjoy, that you're friends at work, that's the first thing that's really, really important to people in a workplace. The second one is respect, being treated as an individual. Your ideas and your suggestions are listened to. Not that every company can implement every great idea, because we can't, but at least people want to be listened to and know that they're respected, that they know the information about how the business is performing, all of that kind of stuff. And then the third one is freedom or independence, which is kind of within the confines of an individual's responsibility. Individually, every job is different, giving them as much freedom as we can to give them the opportunity to flourish in their job. And as I'm listening to you and talking about how you've created this culture, it feels like there's quite a bit of alignment between those people, respect, freedom, core values, and the way you're leading the team at Allis Manufacturing. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Very horizontal on mission. And it already aligns, this whole industry actually aligns with who these neurodiverse kids already are. A lot of them have like systems, process structures. They're gamers. Okay. Whether it's online gaming with Minecraft and building worlds that have rules based, or Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons from when I was a kid.
Yeah. Fortnite for me, by the way.
Fortnite, so my son's been through them all.
Yeah.
But listen, to be able to take something from a print to a final part from raw material and a final inspection report. Again, we're very horizontal. There's an org chart for the bank, but when it comes to us, listen, the high school individual that we just hired has the same amount of success to donate to the success of the project than a guy with 40 years tool and die certification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So it's been a neat journey. There was an article I wrote on why you want more pirates in business.
Okay.
And pirates back in the day, privateers, were actually the first organization to create democracy, hire people based on utility.
Yeah.
Didn't matter who you were,
if you were a good pirate.
if you could swing a hammer or a sword or pull a rope, listen, you were hired.
Sure.
And it was the first organization to have profit sharing.
Interesting. Yeah, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you look at
split up the plunder.
Piracy, those were evil. Guess what? They created a lot of the ideal business structures that books are being written upon now.
Yeah, interesting. That's really fascinating. Touch a little more on this whole horizontal structure. As I was doing a little bit of research into some of your work, and we'll link. By the way, you've got some great articles, some great PowerPoint presentations. We'll link all that up in the show notes. So if you're listening and you have interest in this, we'll make sure that Peter's materials are there. But one of the things I learned was this whole need for a horizontal structure among neurodiverse individuals, specifically those on the autism spectrum. So talk a little bit about what you mean by that, and how and why that's so important when interacting and employing these folks.
So I think having everybody understand what their role is in the success of a project. So many of the jobs that we do as an organization touch 4 or 5 different work centers, might have 2 or 3 different outside services, probably a dozen different suppliers of raw materials, hardware, and such. And so to have some of these pre-game meetings on the big six-figure jobs that we do, to hand things off from a fab to the machinists, understanding, what tolerances and how much material to leave on the stock for somebody to grind, or when we send it out to something, hey, before when we get it back, what's it going to be like? So you're having these pre-game meetings, and we always say as an organization, a lot of what we do is 95% prep and 5% action. So, if you look at my spindle time compared to the actual direct hours I have, listen, it's 30%. And investors are like, well, you need more spindle time. I get that,
Yeah. So
but I
spindle
need
time meaning the amount of time that a
that
machining
we're
center
that
is
is
actually working on
correct.
a
Correct.
substrate or on a part. Yeah.
So, for your students, for your other employers listening out there, you really want to measure 3 times, cut once. And we talked about rework, because then there's 3 times the cost. You got to replace it. Now there's the opportunity cost of you doing it again. So we believe a lot in what's our role, who's doing what, when's it being done by, and what do we expect as a team. And then each of the individuals are allowed to function autonomously in their roles. I would not say we're siloed. If you remember the old term of TQM in the 90s, total quality management, right? It did more to destroy company culture than anything else, because everybody was like, well, that's not my job. That's my lane. I'm staying in my lane. No, you tear that down and you're all focused on the main goal of getting it out on time and correctly.
Sure. Fascinating. In terms of hiring, employing neurodiverse individuals the way that you have, you'd be interested in both. Are there some unique advantages that you've found beyond what we've already talked about, and then any challenges that either you've encountered or people thinking about going on this journey should consider in advance?
So I think there's a lot of talk out there about diversifying your workforce. But understanding that, listen, it still needs to be utilitarian to the efforts. A lot of companies I've seen, they put words in their mission statement that seem like a nice idea, but when it comes to actually execution and employing somebody that's neurodiverse, listen, action more than word. There's one of my slides that you can see, and the link will be there, is really that it takes an organization overall, it takes a city, it takes a village and type of mentality to really support these individuals. It also takes outside services, including the family, to make these individuals successful, right? Parents have been their biggest advocate for their kids, since day one. And they've learned to trust certain organizations that they know their son or daughter is going to be supported by all levels, right? So there has to be a vision at the top of wanting to do this. Management needs to understand that not everybody learns the same way. You need to be flexible with scheduling. You need to ask for understanding. And I think we all learn at different paces. And some of us read, and some of us are visual, and some of us just do. We're a just do test. If it works, cool, keep doing it. If it doesn't, figure out why. So when you talk about scrap and rework, we don't measure it, because we look at each one of those as a learning. There's certain things that happen, as you know, in manufacturing, you can't control. A tool breaks, machine breaks, things happen. But how you approach it and fix it is a whole different thing. But with my two individuals, my challenge now is to get other organizations to not overthink this and understand that the value that neurodiverse individuals can add to the business. So it's funny, because the 2 individuals I inherited, the most efficient guys I have. They don't make mistakes, and there's the least amount of drama.
Yeah, so those would be the advantages, right? To the
Correct.
question is that they're incredibly efficient, they're incredibly accurate, and we all know reducing rework and eliminating it in manufacturing is key to being successful. And and lack of drama, or the lack of just all of that, those challenges that can be introduced into the workforce when people have, carry what baggage they have outside of work into work, or whatever personality conflicts they have inside of work. You're telling me that those are advantages that you have to deal with much less, if at all, with these individuals.
Well, and we talked about the misnomers from an employment standpoint. There's the fear that, listen, they're going to increase my indirect hours. They're going to ruin our benefits plan, right? They're going to be a drag on other direct people because they're going to have to be subsidized with the quality of work. And you just need to throw that out.
You're finding it's the opposite, it sounds like.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the individuals I haven't have hired don't really understand the complex HR process that we've seemed to create for ourselves as well. Well, we have a 12-step hiring process. Again, if you find somebody that can show up on time, cares, and wants to learn, you're going to make a space for them.
Right, exactly.
And the risk-free model would be to work through, say, a staffing organization that specializes working with neurodiverse individuals.
Yeah.
Right. Emma is actually placed through Engage Workforce Solutions. But listen, to Husco, she's there doing quality work. The paperwork is somewhere else. So Emma is adding value to their business, and she's being grown by and supported by their internal resources. And it's just a win-win. You've given an individual a chance to add value to the world.
Credit to them for investing in this kind of an opportunity for your daughter and for others. Really, really cool. Well, we talked about the advantages. You touched on some of the challenges, Peter, that employers have to overcome. One of them being, scheduling, and I think you mentioned that. If you were to list out, a couple challenges that folks should be aware of as they're considering hiring neurodiverse individuals, what are they?
I think it would just be to understand who that individual is. We talked about the hiring process. We show the families through the company and what we do. And the one education program that we're involved with at Milwaukee Area Technical College that's kind of aligned with us. It's very important to understand and make sure that the individual can understand what you do and has interest in those things. One of the biggest ingredients of success is that, listen, the individual has to want to do this.
Right.
You can lead a horse to water, you can teach it, you can drink for him even, but
Right.
it has to, the spark has to come out of the individual, and you're hoping that something you do clicks with. It's a natural fit.
Awesome. So, as one of my mentors used to say, you gotta wanna, right? And
Right.
so making sure that connection is there. So overcoming the challenges with, with scheduling, making sure that you're spending time with the family, making sure that this individual is truly interested in the job and in doing the work. Obviously, really, really important. You've had so much experience with this. You've shared several stories already. Is there a specific success story that stands out to you, Peter, that you want to share with the audience of a neurodiverse individual that joined your organization, or another one for that matter?
Sure. So I think, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of things come together that put me in this position. But when you look at a deliberate activity that we've done to grow something, our newest hire, Eric Gama, that came out of the Uniquely Abled Academy at Milwaukee Area Technical College, was in their second cohort. And these are classes, it's kind of a certificate program, same classes as the state apprentice program. So it's not like the K-12 system where they create a special path for you to graduate on time. They don't lower the standards, they don't stretch things out. These kids are taking the true classes that other tool and die machinists are taking. So we support that organization fully since its inception here in Milwaukee. Eric was part of the second cohort and came to tour the facility, and at graduation came up and said, "Hey, can I come see your place again? And I've got some time this summer, so let's go."
Yeah.
And so the family came and toured. He instantly understood kind of the role we play in the world of manufacturing. So let's try this. We started in June of last year after graduation. It was interesting having to coach my team on, well, what are we gonna do? Guys, it's autism. It's not leprosy.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna be okay here. And listen, Eric came in day one. He interpolated a print from metric to standard and was cutting chips within an hour of being there. The way to impress my team is to show you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Right.
So listen, he was an instant fit.
Awesome.
We're actually paying for now his next level of classes, and then working with his schedule and transportation so that he can be at the shop on days he doesn't have classes.
Yeah.
So we're actually very deliberately trying to change the work mix we do so that I can find, and employ more of these neurodiverse kids.
Sure. So, I mean, you really think about it's everybody that benefits, right? So Eric's got this great opportunity working for a great company, awesome culture. He's been, educated in the world of machine tool and machining and so on. So great opportunity for him, great benefit for your organization. You've got somebody that's all in that has all the other benefits we've already talked about. And great benefit for your team, right? So once they're comfortable working with this individual, and it sounds like there's no reason not to be, they've got another teammate who's pulling in the same direction as they are toward the mission of the organization. So it's really one of those stories, and a great one, where everything kind of came together. Thanks in part to this organization or this program, the Uniquely Abled Academy at Milwaukee Area Technical College. And the origins, I understand, with the Uniquely Abled Project. And so I know you're really, really involved with this. Tell us a little bit about what that program does, and why it's important.
Sure. So, it was founded out of California, I believe, by a dad that had two sons on the spectrum. Ivan Rosenberg is his name, and I was on a conference call actually with a lot of the Massachusetts technical colleges earlier this week. Just they have their first cohort coming out of graduation, and just, hey, what's next? How do you create that seamless pathway from graduation into the workforce? Right. For so many of these individuals coming out of the K-12 system, it's sink or swim, right? So you talk about characteristics of autism level one. Listen, these were the kids that wouldn't make eye contact on the playground, would sit alone at lunch. They're the quiet ones. They're like, oh, we don't know. Well, guess what? They're going to excel. They've got the
Sure.
characteristics that manufacturing needs to succeed nowadays with a lack of labor. So we're all looking for innovative strategies. Well, this program has now been adopted by dozens of schools across the country. Milwaukee was the second school, or was the first really outside of California, besides Ohio. Uh, Pre 2019 is when they
Okay.
started
But
this.
in the last 5, 6 years, yeah.
Correct.
Great.
Correct. It's brand new. Today, there's 2,000 graduates from these uniquely abled academies across the country,
Interesting.
and growing.
Yeah.
And everybody that wants a job, you gotta wanna.
Yeah.
Everybody that's wanted a job has one.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic.
the private sector alignment, we are on the board of advisors,
Okay.
and I've dragged a few other companies into that
Sure.
positioning just to, as academics looks for guidance from the private sector of what kind of students to provide.
Yep.
It's the same model as that.
Awesome, and we'll link that information up in the show notes as well. So if somebody's listening to this and says, "Wow, I want to learn more about," whether it's the Uniquely Abled Academy or Uniquely Abled Project, we'll make sure that information's available too
They are recruiting, I believe, for their fourth cohort now
here at MATC.
at MATC.
Okay,
So
yeah.
the dates are on that, and absolutely reach out to myself if there's any questions. And I think everybody listening knows somebody that has somebody or a neighbor
Right, for sure. Yeah.
that could qualify for this program, and they want to expand it from not just CNC machining, but they'd love to get into the other trades, the electrical and the carpentry as well.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like just a great endeavor and a great effort, and credit to you and others for serving on the advisory board for being a huge advocate for the program. There's got to be other resources available too. So we've got a lot of teachers, we've got a lot of public policy makers, school administrators, and so on. Are there other resources, other nonprofits that are doing cool stuff in the space they should be aware of?
So there's hundreds out there. They've all been started from grants, or they're some Department of Education type of thing, and I think they're all underfunded, understaffed, overworked, and actually unaccountable for the lack of results they've had. As a dad, I can tell you how frustrated it was to navigate that coming out of the K-12 system. There's some great caseworkers in the K-12 system, junior high, all the way through high school, that really helped us as a family. But post K-12, it's sink or swim. So you really need to understand and reach these kids earlier. Two of the organizations that I have fallen in love with that put my faith back in the service industry for us as a family. One is the Engage Workforce Solutions here in Milwaukee that does the staffing. They do contract manufacturing,
That was the one that
train
placed your daughter at
skills.
Husco, right?
Correct,
Yep. Okay.
correct.
Yep.
My daughter and I did a presentation that is the one that you're going to link to last April through another company called Disability In. And through that, we were able to meet Engage. There's an organization called the Down Syndrome Association of Wisconsin, and the Down syndrome name makes them pretty narrow as far as name goes, but they all of neurodiversity. They have a new service that they're launching with the state called Thinkability Wisconsin, and it is meant to be that over umbrella, one-stop shop kind of farmers market for all the services out there, to where you as a family, you as an employer, you as a self-advocate and a future employee can call and listen, have somebody physically take you through What do you want to do? It's been exciting to see, organizations and individuals like yourself give this the attention it deserves. With 11 million kids on the spectrum and individuals underemployed and capable of working, manufacturing being 1/12 of the nation's manufacturing goes on in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's huge. 500,000 people in manufacturing here, $56
Correct.
billion dollars in annual GDP. It's huge.
I mean, it's just enormous,
Yeah.
and not everybody understands
And
that.
I think that really speaks to, Peter, the importance of making sure that we're giving voice to, your message to, and the manufacturing industry as well as creating, awareness about career opportunities that could exist for neurodiverse individuals. So it's really a two-part question, I think, which is how do we make sure that more manufacturers are aware of these incredible opportunities to add great people to our workforce, and then how do manufacturers tell the story even more effectively to neurodiverse individuals who may be interested in manufacturing as a career?
I think we're both students of success, right? The best thing about the world we live in, and there's not a lot of net new to develop, but there's a ton of success to build upon that's been documented, right? Leaders read. Everybody likes success stories. So I think as the efforts that myself and my company have made, which is just a small dent in the entire world, but as individuals like yourselves, help broadcast these messages. As Thinkability has put out these commercials that show individuals adding value to the world, becoming independent, and becoming, um, just able to live on their own. People want to be part of success. They love success stories, and
Right.
when you see it documented, and I've done the best I can to kind of give a playbook, but the playbook you're going to write as an employer, or as an individual, or as a family, man, it's gonna be unique to you. They're 80% of you can get there to 80% with 20% of the effort, but that additional 20% of the unique plan for everybody, it takes a lot of energy. So the more that business leaders hear this, the more that they're exposed to stories, they attend events, and that this subject matter is brought up in the press, it has nowhere to go but up.
Awesome, great advice. And so let's carry that advice topic one step further. You've talked quite a bit about K-12 education, about some really really committed, caseworkers, individuals in that space, about the challenges once a student is through their K-12 journey, and real life begins, if you will. Kind of what where do they go? So you're a parent, you're a business owner. I would be interested to know what advice you would have for our K-12 educators in terms of making students, especially maybe with traditional special education programs or whatever we want to call them, how do we make those students aware of the amazing careers in manufacturing?
Sure. So, I'm sure for the students listening, the parents listening, listen, that we've all had experiences with guidance counselors. They're overworked. So, with all three of my children, the first interaction we had with that advisor was halfway through junior year, and it was a "Hey, let's get to know you" conversation. Way too late. I think you almost need to start in the junior high level to understand how the students are wired. What do you like? No matter what you like or what you're into, there is a pathway into the world for you. Working with the case managers at the junior high level and into the case managers that are working with these neurodiverse students in the K-12 system, is a lot better pathway, because the traditional career counseling just is not set up for these individuals.
Sure, absolutely. So super advice for K-12 educators, and I think good advice for manufacturers and parents as well. So lots and lots of good information here, Peter, that you've been able to share with our audience. We're going to link all of that stuff up on the show notes to make sure that people have access to the incredible resources that you're sharing with us today. I think I want to ask you one last question, and it's a question we ask every single guest here on the Tech Ed podcast as we near our time here with Peter Rathmann, the CEO of Allis Manufacturing. And that question is this, Peter: if you were to go back in time to your 15-year-old self, if you could go back to that 15-year-old sophomore in high school, and give that individual one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think the one thing, I grew up with some naysayers and some doubters of the ideas of things and activities I wanted to do. I was given a pretty good strong moral compass, but you always have those people around you that are going to say, "Oh, that won't work," or "Why are you doing that? What are you putting that on for?" So I would say double down on those naysayers, and don't let them impact your decision making when you know it's going to grow you, grow the people around you, it's going to grow society, and put things in a better place.
Absolutely. Double down on the naysayers. So you got somebody that's telling you can't do something, all the more reason to dive in and get hands on and make whatever that is happen. You're certainly doing that in this space of the neurodiverse workforce, Peter, and just really enjoyed our conversation. Learning, first of all, about what a neurodiverse individual is. Obviously, your journey with your daughter Emma, very, very touching and incredible where her life has taken her and where you've been able to coach her along the way, but not just her, but employees of your companies, and really now through some of this work you're doing with Milwaukee Area Technical College, with some of the other organizations that we highlighted here today, beyond just that small group of people, and really doing your small part to change the world because you took the time to say we're going to double down on the naysayers and we're going to figure out a way to do this. So appreciate you being here, appreciate all that hard work, and really looking forward to watching the story unfold in the future.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the energy that you're giving this topic, because it has a lot of hope for families that were told that their children would never be successful.
Absolutely. And we hate to hear that any child would hear that message, but certainly you're showing them that they don't have to listen to that message, that there's such a great future ahead for them. So thanks so much for being with us. Neurodiversity in the workplace. I knew almost nothing about it when we began this week's episode, and I feel like I know so much more. Many thanks to Peter Rathmann, who is just a fascinating guest, telling stories about his daughter and her journey through the world of autism, through Asperger's, and then how many individual lives he is touching through his advocacy and through the opportunity to employ some terrific, terrific employees in manufacturing. So thanks to Peter. And if you check out the show notes, you'll see all the links. And Peter talked about so many different nonprofit organizations, so many resources that he has written and that he has given us access to. So check out the show notes. That is at techedpodcast.com/Rathmann. That's spelled Rathmann. Don't forget the second N. techedpodcast.com/Rathmann. When you're done with that, check us out on social media. We are everywhere. We're on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We would love to connect. We would love to engage with you. So be sure and visit us on your favorite social media platform. Tell everybody how much you love the Tech Ed Podcast. And if you love it as much as we do, you will be back next week, and we'll see you then.